The late 90s were a popular time for well-known video game mascots to try their hand at 3D space. Mario 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time, even Donkey Kong 64. Naturally, Namco decided to join this trend with one of the oldest mascots in gaming, Pac-Man. This was done with 1999's Pac-Man World for the PlayStation 1, a game I actually remember seeing advertised with Mr. T.
Just what I need, another little bald guy.
Now in 2022, Namco, now known as Bandai Namco, have teamed up with Now Production to remake Pac-Man's first 3D adventure for current-gen consoles. It's Pac-Man World Re-Pac for the Nintendo Switch. When the Pac family are preparing a surprise birthday party for Pac-Man, a team of ghosts abduct them and bring them to their home on Ghost Island, which means it's now up to our round yellow hero to save them. Like other 3D platformers of the time, it's a simple save the kidnapped loved ones story that does enough to prompt this adventure. But I have to say, kidnapping someone's family on their birthday? That's just rude, you stupid ghosts!
They're really inconsiderate.
The visuals of this remake show huge improvements over the blurry, pixelated PS1 original, and they're well presented on the Switch. With the brightened colors, smoothed out textures, and additional HD polish, it's a pretty good looking game that runs well on the Switch. It looks more like what Namco probably wanted the game to look like all along. The sound design remains the same as the original game, with decent music that sometimes uses Pac-Man's classic tune at the appropriate moments, as well as some sound effects from the 1980 arcade game. Like many other games of its time, the game uses all sound effects with subtitles and no voice acting. Aside from the time it was originally made as a justification, I feel like Pac-Man is one of those franchises where this approach makes more sense. It matches the specific cartoon style of Pac-Man and the universe he inhabits. Although the original version was advertised as a 3D Pac-Man game, don't expect this to play like Mario 64. While the characters are all three-dimensional, most of the game is presented on this 2D side-scrolling plane, much more like Mario 3D World or Kirby and the Forgotten Planet. You don't even use the right stick for anything. And yet the game still does a lot with Namco's chosen parameters. The game is about platforming through 6 themed worlds divided into 3 or 4 levels with a boss fight at the end of each world. You access the worlds on this hub called Ghost Island, very similar to early 2000s LEGO games. When I was watching other reviews for this, someone mentioned that 3 worlds are available right from the start. The way they mentioned it made it sound like a bad thing, but since it's just the first 3 worlds and you have to beat them to unlock the next 2 and then beat both of those to unlock the 6th and final world, it's not that bad of a design choice. It gives the player enough freedom of what order to play this game's levels in, while still maintaining enough standard game structure to create a real sense of progression. As you're playing this game, you're not only conquering the levels themselves, but you're also exploring hidden areas to find bonus items and save your family members. This is a game where hidden fruit unlocks gates that hold these bonus letters that function kind of like the letters in Donkey Kong Country. Getting all 6 unlocks a bonus collectathon stage at the end where you grab 1-ups and fruit for more points then leading to more 1-ups. You may think you don't need these 1-ups at first, but I quickly discovered how much I really did need as many of them as possible, because this game is more challenging than I expected. The small enemies are easy enough to kill since they only take 1 hit, but the thing is the timing of where and how they move versus when you attack them. Many times in later levels, they took me out just by running into me in the middle of a jump and I would fall to my death. I also fell a lot because the 2.5D presentation of the levels often led to me having poor depth perception, and so I would jump to where I thought a platform was only to fall because I wasn't lined up with it. I realize that's an inherent issue with all 3D games of this exact design, but it seemed to happen more often here than in other 2.5D games I played. The other thing that threw me off was Pac-Man's bounce move and fluttering move. Instead of double jumping, Pac-Man has this fluttering move like Yoshi to help him stay in the air for a few seconds to properly make a further jump. It doesn't move you forward very much, but the other thing is that it's a different button from your initial jump button. And this bouncing move that Pac-Man uses as an attack and a way to get up to higher platforms is done by pressing the jump button a second time. It may sound like nitpicking, but this mix-up led to me diving to my death because I would press the jump button a second time for double jump or flutter out of the habit I developed from literally every platformer I've played before. And although you can change the controls, it doesn't let you switch the flutter button with the bounce button so that the flutter button is the jump button pressed a second time. I eventually adapted to it, but when the platforming gets harder in the later levels, it's easy to quickly revert back to what you're used to. It just feels like this is an unnecessary issue for platforming. That's the kind of challenge I see as more of a design flaw, but in all fairness, other challenges are actually signs of good design. There are clever placements of enemies and hazards to get in your way that you have to get around through skilled movement and good timing. Sometimes this means hitting switches or using power-ups like this ball that makes you Metal Pac-Man. Huh. I wonder where he got that idea from. There's also the glowing ball that's taken straight out of the arcade games, as it turns you into a giant Pac-Man that can eat ghosts. It's a cool way to integrate Pac-Man's origins into this 3D game, and it's satisfying to use this ability on ghosts who are otherwise unkillable. This actually leads me to the bonus games that are 3D modernized versions of the top-down maze runners from back in 1980, and they play exactly the same way as Gen X remembers them, just with more traps in some of them based on each world that they're found in. Doing this as more of a bonus thing instead of a required challenge works well for a game like this, as it makes it more accessible to younger gamers who aren't used to gameplay like this, but it's also there for older gamers to feel nostalgic, and for completionists to have another layer of challenge. Pac-Man has some entertaining charm to him too, like most other 3D platformer mascots. Little animations like how he wobbles while on a moving platform, or squishes like a pancake when crushed. It works well to balance and complement the variety of attacks he has. Throwing dots at enemies, charging at them, bouncing on them. Namco does deserve credit for thinking these things through. I was also impressed by the different approaches to the boss fights, as no two boss battles play out the same way. Some are more intense 3D adventure style boss fights, but some pay tribute to older Namco arcade games, like this one clearly being inspired by the old Galaga arcade game. One boss fight, if you can call it that, is actually a kart race against clowns. It's a good way for this game to stand out. Finally, for you Gen Xers, beating this game unlocks Original Mode, which is just the original arcade classic you guys played in high school. Still playing exactly as you remember, but with a different controller. It's a good incentive for older players to beat the game, also for younger players curious about the history of this round, yellow, historical figure. I'm kinda surprised this game is going for $30. I was expecting $50 or $40. But $30 is actually a really good price for this. But there are definitely better 3D platformers out there, even on current gen hardware. So I'd say it's worth buying if you're a Pac-Man fan. If you're more of a fan of platformers in general, just rent it. Well, that's my review of Pac-Man World Re-Pac for the Nintendo Switch. To help me produce more videos like this, please support my Patreon page. Special thanks to my current patrons here. Remember that supporting my Patreon page gets your name in the credits and access to my flagship videos a full day early. Also check out my previous reviews of these other cartoony 3D adventure games on the Switch, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Super Mario 3D All-Stars. See you all next time!